So I came across this article that talks about fathers and paternity leave. I will link the article, which is pretty long, and I will also read the article. I am not going to read the article completely, just about 60% of it, to cut down on time, and also, I will be breaking up the article with asterisk lines to show where I have skipped over something. Consider them edit marks.
Hey Razor, can I read the news article? After all, it's been forever since you've used my narration talents.
So you want to read the article, and let me guess, you'll do it. But for money, of course.
Of course, I bought this Dodge Viper from some guy and I owe him money. I am a few months behind, and I told the sucker I would pay immediately upon test driving it, and then got him suckered into taking monthly installments, and I am behind.
Paul, I was the guy you bought the car from.
Oh, so then, it would obviously be in your best interest to pay me, that way I can get to paying you back much sooner.
Paul, that almost made sense. Anyhow, go on, read it.
Alright, and I'll tell you all what I am going to do. I am going to switch to a paper background, make it look like I am reading from a newspaper. Traditionally, it was always the mother who took time off to care for new family members. But we're seeing a real shift, said Lisa Horn of the Society for Human Resource Management, a business membership group that tracks benefit trends. Companies that offer paid parental leave for fathers are setting themselves up for a real competitive advantage. Those norms are not changing only in the United States. The International Labor Organization said in a recent report that fathers wanting policies such as paid leave and flexible schedules to take on greater caregiving roles is likely to be one of the most significant social developments of the 21st century. Robert E. Moritz, chairman and senior partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers, said the Professional Service Network's surveys have found that 70% of millennial employees see flexible work environments as hugely important, as do 60% of baby boomers. The difference is, the millennials are willing to walk, he said at a recent White House summit on working families. They want choices. Aaron Gouveia, 34, is a case in point. Gouveia was working as a newspaper reporter when his first child was born 6 years ago, and with no paid parental leave, he cobbled together vacation and sick time to be at home with his infant. He quit and went to work for IBM. When his second child was born, he took the company's 2 weeks of paid leave. The company culture is even more important to me than the company itself, said Gouveia, who writes the Daddy Files blog. And I like to work for a company culture that gets it, to work for bosses who understand that we're all human, and want to spend time with our families. How we're built. That more men want to take on caregiving roles comes as no surprise to scientists. Paul Rayburn, author of Do Fathers Matter? What science is telling us about the parent we've overlooked, said the stereotypes about men are so strong that until recently, science all but ignored the role of fathers as parents. If you asked a psychologist in the 1970s what fathers do for their kids, especially young kids, the answer would have been, not much. Rayburn said. The most important thing people thought fathers did was earn money and keep their kids out of poverty, which is a good thing, but that was the beginning and the end of it. Emerging science is finding that men bond with their children even before birth as their testosterone levels drop and their levels of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and prolactin, the hormone that produces breast milk in women, rise. Fathers who are warm and engaged also strengthen a child's healthy development, Rayburn said. And studies have found that it is fathers who stretch their young children's vocabularies and help with language acquisition. Science is also showing that becoming a good parent is less about a mythological maternal instinct, he said, and more about having the time early on to develop the competence and the skill. I didn't hit the issue of paid parental leave hard in my book, Rayburn said, but I provided all the ammunition for why it's important. Uphill battle. Still, fathers who want to do more caregiving from the start face a steep uphill battle. Only 14% of U.S. companies offer paid parental leave to mothers or fathers, down from 16% in 2008, and many offer only partial salary replacement, according to the Families and Work Institute. Unlike any other advanced economy in the world, the United States offers only unpaid leave under the Family and Medical Leave Act, which doesn't cover 40% of the workforce. And 1 in 5 companies that are required by law to offer unpaid leave to fathers don't, the study found. This is clearly one place where business policy has not caught up with changing demographics, Institute President Ellen Galinsky said. In June, President Obama called for paid parental leave, saying, "A whole lot of fathers would love to be home for their new baby's first weeks in the world." Obama didn't endorse paid leave legislation pending in Congress. Instead, he offered funds for 5 states to explore how to craft paid leave programs. 3 states, California, New Jersey and Rhode Island, now have employee paid parental leave programs. Others oppose extending leave to fathers as not natural, with one writer in Britain vowing, "If God had meant men to have paternity leave, he would have given us all wombs." The traditional view, argues Josh Leves, a journalist for CNN, is a big reason why companies give fathers shorter leaves than mothers, and why many fathers don't take any leave at all. As men in this country, we are literally leaving hundreds of millions of dollars on the table in unused parental leave, and the biggest reason is, they're afraid to take it, Leves said. Study after study shows that when men come back from taking parental leave, they're often treated worse by their colleagues and their bosses. Their reputations are damaged. They're demoted or given less work, because we have these stigmas that dads are supposed to work and moms are supposed to stay home. Last fall, Leves filed one of the first complaints with the EEOC alleging discrimination against fathers after his employer, Time Warner, refused to grant him equal paid leave time. Time Warner offers biological mothers and adoptive mothers and fathers 10 weeks of paid parental leave, but allows biological fathers only 2, even when they plan, like Leves did, to be the primary caregiver. Other discrimination cases include a father in Ohio who alleges he was passed over for promotion because he took unpaid leave to care for his children and was shunned and defamed, and a father who said he was terminated after he asked to extend his 5-day parental leave and was refused. There's still a powerful stereotype that real men work. Real men earn wages, said Brad Harrington, director of Boston College's Center for Work and Family. Women who take extended leave might be seen as less committed workers, but they're seen as better women, because the stereotype is that's the right thing for women to do. But the irony for men is, they're perceived not only as lesser workers if they take leave, but lesser men. Leave for Men, Equity for Women. Janet Gornick, a professor of political science and sociology at the City University of New York's Graduate Center who studies paid leave policies around the globe, said that traditional attitudes about gender still hold powerful sway even in countries with generous paid parental leave policies. In France, Germany and Austria, for example, 2% of fathers take paid leave, compared to 90% of mothers. European countries realized that instead of promoting gender equality, these leave policies were retarding it, Gornick said. So several countries developed use it or lose it programs. If fathers don't use their allotted leave time, the family loses it. That changed father behavior overnight. In 2000, a movement of young fathers led Iceland to change its paid leave to a use it or lose it system. Now, mothers and fathers each have 3 months paid leave and 3 months the family can share. And lawmakers have promised to extend the leaves for both parents to 5 months, with 2 months to share, and increase the pay in coming years, despite the fiscal crisis of 2008 that bankrupted the country. Today, 90% of all fathers in Iceland take paid parental leave. As a result of the father quota, a recent report found, 70% of parents who live together continue to share child care duties 3 years later, up from 40%. This is one of the biggest factors in preventing women from leaning into the workplace, CNN's Leves said. Our current policies police men out of caregiving roles and police women into them. And we have to stop. Giving adequate, substantial parental leave for fathers is good for fathers, good for gender equality and good for business. Anthony Mitchell, 46, of Atlanta, told his employer that he planned to take only a few vacation days when his wife gave birth to their first child. He assumed that's all he'd get. His employer, Catalyst, a non-profit group dedicated to women's advancement and gender equality, set him straight. They said, "What are you talking about? You get parental leave." Almost like it was a foregone conclusion, Mitchell said. He took 6 weeks of paid leave and worked reduced, flexible hours for another 2.
In our current day and age, men are wanting to devote less time to the role of walking ATM, provider, breadwinner, and more time being fathers. This is a positive change as parenthood has always been a synonym for motherhood. What gets me is the negative attitudes many have reported. Corporations will give women plenty of maternity leave, but give practically nothing, or a mere 1 day, of paternity leave. Bosses and co-workers taking the attitude that caring for children is a woman's role. I think these few statements really sum it up the best. If God had meant men to have paternity leave, he would have given us all wombs. That traditional view, argues Josh Leves, a journalist for CNN, is a big reason why companies give fathers shorter leaves than mothers, and why many fathers don't take any leave at all. There's still a powerful stereotype that real men work, real men earn wages, said Brad Harrington, director of Boston College's Center for Work and Family. Women who take extended leave might be seen as less committed workers, but they're seen as better women, because the stereotype is that's the right thing for women to do. But the irony for men is, they're perceived not only as lesser workers if they take leave, but lesser men. It is not feminism, at least not in this case, which seeks to separate fathers from their children. It is traditionalism. These old-fashioned traditionalist views of a man's role come back to bite men in the ass. This is a prime example of why we must reject traditionalism, reject the traditionalists. and understand that no matter how much of an enemy feminism is, traditionalists are not our allies. In fact, at the end of the article it says, Anthony Mitchell, 46, of Atlanta, told his employer that he planned to take only a few vacation days when his wife gave birth to their first child. He assumed that's all he'd get. His employer, Catalyst, a non-profit group dedicated to women's advancement and gender equality, set him straight. They said, "What are you talking about? You get parental leave." Almost like it was a foregone conclusion, Mitchell said. He took 6 weeks of paid leave and worked reduced, flexible hours for another 2. There was so much fear of the unknown for both my wife and I. For us to be able to handle those things together as true partners was huge. Although Mitchell was initially worried about missing so much work, his colleagues and clients were supportive, saying, "This is a time in life that you never get back." This is a case where ironically it is feminism helping break the destructive and detrimental traditional view of men which seeks to separate fathers from their children. Now, this doesn't exactly make up for all the ways feminism hurts men, like perpetually insisting men are just rape machines and all interaction with children ought to be viewed as potential child molestation. I have seen countless of very popular posts on Tumblr that say things to the effect of "there's nothing wrong with a father laying in bed with his child, so long as the mother is present," and other hideous things that suggest males have some powerful predilection to molest and violate children, and women are the safe bet whose instincts will protect children from potentially dangerous men. This is a somewhat popular meme in feminism and is related to their rape hysteria, but in this one case, this is an instance of feminism's attempt to break the old-fashioned and archaic gender roles, actually working out to men's favor. It is unbelievably sad when feminism has examples of occasionally helping the male sex, and all traditionalism has is throwing men under the bus by telling them they have some sort of obligation, duty, to man up and marry a woman to preserve the sanctity of nuclear family values. And it makes me think back to this.
Feminists do not want you to lose custody of your children. The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy. We're working on it, and you guys are trying to dismantle it. Is a list of the things that we're working towards. Now, if you would shut the fuck up for the 50th billionth time.
Maybe I owe Big Red an apology. Maybe feminism does take a break from demonizing men every now and then and do a little something for us occasionally. Like I said, how does this not serve as a perfect example of how traditionalism hurts the male sex? And as for all this love of family, all this feel-good family-friendly family values shit, these traditionalists actually do a lot to hurt family. How good is it for family when men are seen as wage earners, and women are seen as parents? Again, in that article, and in many other cases, the view, as held by good old-fashioned traditionalist manly men, is that a man is a breadwinner, a woman is a caregiver, and you don't think any of this is affecting the rate in which women are awarded custody of the child in a divorce. What about the absolutely insisted role that men work, women stay home and nurture children? You don't think this also has a lot to do with why in a divorce, the woman, whose job it was to raise the kids, is getting the kids, and the man, whose job it was to make the money to support the family, is in divorce expected to continue his provider role via alimony and child support? I said it before and I'll say it again, it is the traditionalists that have done more to fuck men over in divorce court than feminism. The very fact you wouldn't be in divorce court to begin with, had you not manned up and did your duty to marry, alone ought to stand as a testament to how bad these traditionalists throw men under the bus in their worship of the dual spheres model, the nuclear family values. And another interesting part of the article is where it says, science is also showing that becoming a good parent is less about a mythological maternal instinct, he said, and more about having the time early on to develop the competence and the skill, the mythological maternal instinct. And where did this myth come from? This myth, that permeates our culture, we have seen it time and time again in movies where the mother goes through hell and back to rescue or save her child, the great and powerful maternal instinct. We could say that movies in the past few decades that convey this message are the result of feminist propaganda, but what excuse do we have for the movies and shows of the 1960s and back to the 1930s that glorify the sanctity of motherhood, not fatherhood, not parenthood, but motherhood, and the traditionalists today, some of them on YouTube, claiming that a woman's natural role is caregiver, nurturer of children, and anyone opposed to this is just a gender ideologue whining about nature. These people glorify women as caregivers, and we are currently a fatherless society. Let me say that again, we are a fatherless society, and traditionalists are busy glorifying motherhood and the mythological maternal instinct. Tell me again how these traditionalists are in any way our friends, our allies. And one more thing, just one more thing I want to harp on. This part of the article, In the United States, where mothers have longer parental leaves, time studies show that mothers still do about twice the housework and child care, on average, even when they work full-time. This is one of the biggest factors in preventing women from leaning into the workplace. CNN's Left said, "Our current policies police men out of caregiving roles and police women into them. If motherhood is so fucking sacred, so deep-rooted into their brain, and men are just biologically wired to be workaholics with only a passing interest in their children, and this is all biological, God-given, the way nature commands it, and we aren't to whine and fuss about nature, then why the need to constantly use politics to manipulate circumstances that makes motherhood for women the path of least resistance, and makes breadwinner for men the path of least resistance? Why manipulate people? Why police them into these roles if these roles are already hardwired biological nature that can't be changed?" It reminds me of what Betty Friedan said in The Feminine Mystique, that newspapers and magazines portrayed career women, and childless women, as neurotic, while showing stay-at-home full-time mothers as peaceful and content. Even back then, the marriage mafia, the family values crowd, were attempting to socially engineer a cultural view of how men and women ought to be, in accordance with their ideology. So is fatherhood the new masculine mystique? Are we going to see some traditionalist conservative propaganda portraying stay-at-home fathers as transsexuals, gays, fruitcakes, and neurotics, to shame this generation of men into being breadwinners, and being too manly for any real parental participation beyond financial provider of child? I don't know. But I say keep a lookout for it, and if you see it, don't instantly assume it's feminist-driven propaganda. We do, after all, have more than just feminism as our enemy. Considering how much feminism has rejected the notion of women as walking baby factories, perhaps fatherhood is not a thing that a significant portion of feminists feel threatened by. So if we see some house husband shaming, and we see propaganda discouraging men from viewing themselves as fathers first, worker bees second, then I am actually going to suspect this will be orchestrated by the family values crowd, those supporters of the dual spheres gender model that suggests women stay in the home, men work outside the home. In other words, tradkins. I will suspect it to be tradkin propaganda.